The Duke of Sussex has never hidden his feelings, he's raw, transparent, and unguarded by nature. Yet recently, insiders close to him reveal his vulnerability has shifted into something darker, more fractured. People in his inner circle report disturbing changes, sleepless nights, restless movement through empty rooms, compulsive monitoring of digital coverage as though bracing for disaster. Then came a breaking point. A legal advisor connected to the couple's team claims the Duke revealed something devastating, that his wife didn't physically bear their children. The narrative shared with the public was the version she demanded they present, and he agreed because he thought it would shield their family. Instead, that hidden truth has become an unbearable burden. Even royal staff members say he appears to be collapsing inward. This was when the carefully constructed facade began to splinter. Once that first fracture emerged, reality started seeping out. And here's where the actual account truly starts. Which leads us to the woman now positioned at ground zero of this controversy. Identified only as DL for legal protection, she's no longer staying quiet. DL asserts she wasn't simply a gestational carrier. She maintains she's the genetic parent of both Archie and Lilibet. She claims to possess DNA evidence, legal documents, email correspondence, and medical records. And she insists she holds the reality that the Sussexes attempted to conceal. For years, DL remained hidden behind an ironclad confidentiality agreement, instructed never to come forward, never to identify herself, never to exist in public view. She received promises, silence would be maintained, her safety guaranteed, financial obligations fulfilled. Yet she alleges none of these commitments were honored. No final payments arrived, no acknowledgement came, not even a health follow-up after delivery. Only silence, followed by complete erasure. And DL states she refuses to be erased this time. To grasp how DL entered this explosive situation, we need to revisit the end of 2018. That's when a representative from an exclusive reproductive medical center, one serving affluent clients requiring total discretion, contacted her. The proposition was straightforward: an influential pair needed assistance. Everything would remain confidential, the financial arrangement would be substantial, and her connection to the children would never surface publicly. She executed the confidentiality contracts. She entered their medical system. Documentation was prepared with exceptional care. Every action was handled discreetly. So discreetly, DL reports, that even medical personnel received minimal details about the intended recipients. She went through the pregnancy. She adhered to all medical protocols. She gave birth successfully, and then she was eliminated from the narrative. This is where things turn ominous, because DL's account of subsequent events doesn't merely contradict the Sussex version, it could fundamentally alter royal chronicles. When Archie arrived in May 2019, the global audience witnessed radiant photographs, celebratory coverage, and a royal pair requesting personal space. But DL maintains what the public witnessed wasn't reality. She alleges Archie was actually 14 days old during that famous hospital introduction. 14 days. Which means that widely covered moment when journalists were informed the Duchess had just entered labor was actually a meticulously orchestrated timeline designed to obscure the authentic sequence of events. DL states she'd already delivered him discreetly in Colorado. No royal press corps, no dramatic medical facility scene, just a quiet delivery followed by radio silence. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Atlantic, official channels issued ambiguous announcements. The Duchess was in labor. Shortly afterward, announcements confirmed Archie's arrival. The timeline seemed off even then, though nobody challenged it since people figured the couple simply desired a non-traditional approach. However, DL insists this wasn't about maintaining boundaries, it was a carefully planned presentation, allowing the Duchess to appear as a birth mother without any actual delivery room verification. What intensifies the strangeness is how the Duchess looked in subsequent days. Completely refreshed, showing zero indicators of strenuous childbirth, appearing in high heels just 48 hours after supposedly delivering. Back then, observers praised her remarkable recovery. Yet according to DL's version, the explanation for the Duchess appearing unaffected was obvious: she hadn't experienced delivery whatsoever. And that first public appearance with Archie wasn't genuine emotion, it was theater. If DL's statements hold water, then concealing a gestational carrier involves more than managing photographs or controlling visibility. Documentation becomes critical. And she alleges the documentation is where everything turned sinister. DL maintains her identity appears nowhere on any publicly accessible medical records. Not on hospital release paperwork, not on official birth documentation, not on any formal file linked to Archie. She claims explicit instructions were given: your existence must leave zero footprint, not even a written signature. This erasure, she contends, was implemented to preserve the royal narrative intact, ensuring the Duchess appeared to have fulfilled traditional maternal expectations. Yet even the legitimate documents that exist prompt scrutiny. Several months following Archie's arrival, the Duchess's name was abruptly deleted from his birth registration. The couple's representative characterized it as an administrative adjustment at the time. But with DL's allegations surfacing, certain sources suspect that modification was deliberate, a method to prevent legal examination of contradictory information. There's additional evidence. DL claims the reproductive facility, the liaison, and even financial transaction records were all structured to render her identity untraceable. She maintains she wasn't merely disconnected personally, she was eliminated from all legal documentation, as though her participation never occurred. Nevertheless, privately, she preserved everything: the contracts, the electronic correspondence, the medical center invoices. She retained them because her discretion was meant to be respected, because she anticipated fair financial settlement, because she had faith in the arrangement she'd entered. Yet when those promises evaporated, and when she understood she'd been supplanted by a narrative excluding her entirely, she chose to emerge from the shadows. And with that decision, the complete story surrounding these royal births started falling apart. On the surface, this might seem like a personal disagreement between parties over a violated agreement. But that's not what gives this situation its explosive nature. What makes it devastating is monarchical legislation. If the Duchess didn't physically deliver Archie and Lilibet, and if no formal gestational carrier acknowledgement occurred per UK statutory requirements, then these children's royal standing becomes murky. Extraordinarily murky. Royal inheritance protocols aren't merely ceremonial, they're legally binding. They demand ancestry be traceable, confirmable, and properly registered. A concealed gestational carrier shatters every element of that foundation. And palace sources suggest quiet panic behind closed doors. Here's the breakdown. First, the children's hereditary designations face potential challenges. If the Duchess wasn't the legal parent, their position shifts under inheritance regulations. Second, official registrations may no longer align with actual circumstances, creating exposure to fraud allegations or misrepresentation claims. Third, governmental bodies might require intervention. Legislative members have already questioned why these births never received independent confirmation. Fourth, cross-border documentation could become void, particularly Lilibet's American birth registration if it contains false maternal details. This has evolved beyond a simple inquiry of whether the Duchess carried these pregnancies. This now concerns whether the Crown was deceived, whether the global public was deceived, and whether the entire succession framework was constructed on fabrication rather than fact. Within palace chambers, advisors are allegedly working through midnight hours. Legal counsel is scrutinizing every component of the Sussex account. Because if DL releases her evidence to the world, the consequences won't merely cause royal embarrassment. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. It could demand a complete revision of monarchical records. As attention intensifies, the Duchess of Sussex becomes increasingly invisible. Not tactically withdrawn, actually absent. Zero public engagements, no addresses, no curated photography sessions, no unexpected media ventures, no orchestrated public sightings, not even a brief public comment. Former colleagues report she's entered what resembles voluntary isolation. Entertainment industry sources quietly mention that executives previously enthusiastic about associating with her are now retreating cordially, discreetly, yet decisively. This isn't animosity, it's apprehension. Nobody desires proximity to a potentially catastrophic royal situation. Her absence feels particularly unusual because the Duchess has never been someone who retreats from view. She's consistently been vocal, assertive, prepared to reshape her public perception. Yet currently, the quietness seems less like authority and more like strategic positioning. She's observing, monitoring, assessing the severity before determining her response. Former media advisors stated it plainly, her silence isn't voluntary. It's mandatory. Because if DL actually comes forward with the documentation she alleges possessing, the Duchess's response could define her entire public existence. As the Duchess vanishes, the Duke deteriorates. Close associates say he's virtually unrecognizable from the vibrant royal figure once familiar worldwide. He's agitated, easily frustrated, increasingly distant from his wife and isolating himself for extended periods. Reports suggest he's consumed by remorse. Not regarding the surrogacy choice itself, that's not wrongdoing, but regarding the concealment, for endorsing a narrative now threatening to destroy everything he struggled to preserve. Someone within their circle shared a heartbreaking admission he allegedly made, "I only wanted to safeguard my family. I never imagined things would escalate like this." That statement reverberates through every layer of this disintegrating story. The Duke previously declared he departed royal life to defend his relatives, to establish a more secure, balanced existence. Yet somewhere during that journey, his purpose transformed into something different, a facade he could no longer sustain. Now, as DL readies herself to testify, the Duke confronts the most difficult reality. The narrative he helped construct is disintegrating, and he cannot support it independently anymore. While the palace remains frozen and the Sussexes withdraw, DL positions herself for public revelation. Her representatives indicate she's prepared, ready to testify, ready to present her evidence, ready to expose what she claims was concealed behind legal agreements and royal discretion. The materials she allegedly possesses include executed confidentiality contracts, monetary transactions connected to Sussex financial structures, correspondence with Duke's staff members, reproductive facility documentation, medical invoicing bearing her identity where the Duchesses should appear, imagery from within healthcare settings, confidential movement records correlating with birth timelines. If any portion of this collection proves legitimate, it would trigger legal chaos across two nations. Her advisors have suggested a broadcast interview. No manipulation, no glossing, no protective intermediaries, simply DL, her documentation, and her lived experience. For the Sussex couple, this represents more than danger, it's a ticking clock. Because once DL speaks openly, their narrative becomes permanently altered. Not influenced by public relations, not influenced by compassion or communication tactics, but influenced by proof. And proof transforms everything. Now we reach the final moment, when remaining quiet becomes more burdensome than revelation. Overseas, Buckingham Palace stays motionless. No rebuttals, no validations, only the charged stillness of an ancient institution preparing for seismic impact. Inside their Montecito residence, the Sussex household reportedly mirrors that tension and quietness. The Duchess sheltering from the gathering tempest. The Duke moving restlessly through endless wakeful hours, uttering words nobody anticipated hearing from British royalty. And DL stands at history's threshold, possessing documentation that could fundamentally redefine royal birthright itself. Should she proceed publicly, audiences won't simply discover a hidden fact, they'll witness an carefully maintained image collapse completely. Because this account has transcended mere speculation. It's moved beyond whispers or conjecture. It concerns identity, ancestry, and authenticity, the fundamental supports sustaining the monarchy itself. For years, global audiences observed the Sussexes construct a story of contemporary romance, fresh starts, and transparent emotion. But now, the veil has lifted. And what exists beneath isn't a storybook romance, it's a crack. A crack expanding daily. And should DL present her evidence publicly, that crack might become the pivot point where royal chronicles shift direction. A moment when people recognize that the most meticulously managed royal narrative of recent decades wasn't founded on heritage, wasn't founded on authenticity, but on concealment. The crown waits, society waits, the globe waits, and as time advances, one reality emerges supreme. When proof enters any situation, even the most elaborate constructions begin to shake. And this particular construction is approaching its reckoning.